In this episode, I'm talking to Brandi Axelsen, a 35-year-old healthcare worker from Colorado who's been struggling with symptoms for over 8 months. It's heartbreaking, especially when you hear how she contracted the virus. You're listening to Real COVID Stories with Ivy Lane. The media numbers don't show the full story. Millions of people around the world have been sick for months and months on end. This podcast serves to share their stories, real stories of how people's lives have changed. Stories of the daily struggles, the prejudice, the pain, the triumph, the funny, and more. So hi, everyone. It's Ivy Lane here, and welcome to COVID Stories. The aim of this podcast is to let people who've been sick with coronavirus tell their stories. And most of us have been sick for considerable amounts of time, and we call ourselves long haulers. I think the technical name is we're suffering post-COVID syndrome, and I think everyone's still learning a lot about it. But for a lot of us, we have been sharing our stories in groups and sharing our experiences. And I realise that many people in the outside world, outside our little bubble, aren't aware of what it's like for a lot of us. So we thought it'd be a good idea to share some of our stories. And today I've got Brandi Axelsen with us from Colorado. Hi, Brandi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So how can I just ask how long you've been sick for?
I got sick early March.
Okay.
And I got over the worst of it by, let me think, probably June. And then I was great. And then all my physical, injuries flared up. Like, it was kind of like I'd gotten to a point where I was good, and then my body went, no. And then I was bedridden for another several weeks just with old injuries. So I had I was unable to move basically because I was in so much pain. Then I'm pretty good. It's really now just the brain function. That's the problem.
It's one of my most difficult, yes.
Yes, I think for all of us. So when did you first get sick?
I got sick in mid-April. And I was out of work for about a month and a half, and I never really got to where I felt good. Honestly, I've kind of just always felt bad since then. And it's been interesting. It's definitely changes, and it evolves into more, and it's definitely a weird experience.
Yes. So were you able to get tested?
I was, but I think the only reason why I was able to get a test and get it as soon as I did was because I'm a healthcare worker.
Yeah, okay.
And so it was prioritized to healthcare workers at that time. It was very early when it happened here in the States, and so many people couldn't get a test then. Yes. So many people. And it honestly was just because I was a healthcare worker. I was able to get it easily.
So your test was positive?
It was, yes.
Gives you some benefits. Actually testing positive. People believe you.
I feel really bad for the people that aren't able to get that positive test, or wasn't able to get a test at all, because it just seems it doesn't seem right at all. It seems a very skewed system.
Yeah. Well, I know that they're testing a lot here, but I mean, our population's a lot smaller than yours. But, when I was sick, they weren't even tracking community transmission. They didn't even want to know about it. So I didn't fit the criteria for testing. Even though I was in the COVID ward in emergency, I didn't fit, the criteria. So that's been very frustrating.
Were they at least diagnosing based on symptoms?
No.
Because I know that they were trying to do that here.
Yeah, they're not doing that here. No. And I'm very lucky. My GP is amazing. He, right from the start, it didn't matter what my diagnosis was, he was treating symptom by symptom, supporting me symptom by symptom. So I've been able to get all the testing that I needed. I was, wherever I was, it was just based off whatever symptom I was having at the time. And he didn't need a test confirmation to, treat me. So that's good.
That's wonderful.
I was very, very
That's
lucky.
really yeah.
So what was your life like pre-COVID?
Oh, I was an extremely active person, and I was never sit down. Nothing ever got me down. Even when I was sick before, I would get up and just live my life through it. And I miss being able to like clean my whole house in a day. Now I struggle with cleaning one room in a day, I was extremely healthy. I worked out 3 or 4 times a week. I was running a couple miles a week, and I haven't been able to do any of that at all. Yeah. So I was, very, very active, very on the go all the time, and it's been a whole 180. So.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, is actually accepting, isn't it? That you can't do what you want to do.
I haven't reached the accepting part of that. I'm still struggling with that quite a bit. So, but it's a learning curve. It definitely is.
Yeah. And so you said you're a healthcare worker. What sort of healthcare worker?
I'm a psychiatric technician. I care for the developmentally disabled in crisis.
Okay.
So we have residents with very high behaviors and such, and some that are completely full care and are in wheelchairs. So very vast, very physical job. And I'm not even able to do that.
So you're not working at the moment?
I was working on a modified schedule. And now that I can no longer, after 6 months of working a modified schedule, I'm on workman's comp. Okay. And so once you hit that 6 months in workman's comp, you have to either be able to go back at full capacity, or you have to be put out on a disability. So I was put out on, I have about a month left of injury leave to take. And then after that, if I can't go back at full capacity, I will be let go.
Wow. That's terrifying.
It really is, because all of my family's health insurance is through it. At the beginning of the pandemic, my husband was laid off. And he still has not found a job either.
Oh my goodness. And welfare in the US probably isn't what it is here.
No, no, it's not.
Wow. So you're like looking at basically no income if you can't. Wow, that's huge.
No income, no healthcare, no nothing. Yeah.
Wow. I think in Australia, a lot of people forget how lucky we are. Our government gave us quite a lot of money on welfare, much more than normal welfare payments for quite a while, and froze housing evictions. So people couldn't, I know some people still got evicted, but, they did make a law where you couldn't get evicted during a certain period of time for not paying your rent. And we have free healthcare. So I think, Australian, we're very, very lucky here. I'm very grateful to have been going through this. I'd hate to be in other parts of the world, especially the US, where, that's such a burden to carry.
Yeah, it's hard. It will be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I'm going to try to file for disability accommodations through work. And if I qualify through that, I'll be able to keep my job and be able to work at a lower capacity. But it all depends on if they're going to allow me to do that or not, because I don't have a diagnosis yet. They keep saying post-viral syndrome, but they're saying post-COVID syndrome, but we still don't have an actual code for that.
Yeah, because they're still learning, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's kind of up in the air on if that will be even accepted or not. So we might be struggling quite a bit here in the next month or so.
Wow, sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
So when did you? Okay, so I guess you got a test, but when you first got sick, when did you sort of realize that this wasn't like a normal illness?
Oh, it was probably about a week in. The first week I kind of it felt more like a really bad sinus infection with the flu on top of it and maybe a little bit of strep throat. It was like 3 different illnesses in one, but it was almost like the symptoms would come in a wave. Like I'd kind of feel okay for a little bit. And then it was like, bam, I'd get hit and it felt like a weighted blanket got thrown on me. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was off, like I was going to die some days. And it was very touch and go. But after the first week, it got worse. Yeah. And that's when I was like, okay, this isn't okay. And that was when I really couldn't breathe. And my heart rate just sitting was over 100. And it was like, it was probably after that first week is when it got the worst. And it just continued to get worse from there on. I never went to the hospital though. Working healthcare, I think it was I had the fear of, exposing more people. Mm-hmm. And I had it. I'm like, do I really need to go? Because I could get, more people sick.
Yeah.
I care for people with lung issues. And so I'm like, okay, my oxygen's still, 92. I'm okay at 92. If they can live with dropping below 90 all the time and not go, I'm okay. And so, it was me rationalizing all the time is, do I really need to go? So I never went. It definitely, for it to take me down, it's really hard. I've had norovirus before.
Norovirus.
I know, and that's about it. It's over in a few days, but
at least it's quick.
And I've had the flu, and I've been able to get through all that. I've had surgery before, and I've been able to get through that. And it just almost amazed me what it took out of me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I realized, I think when it was really bad, when I was making myself get up and walk the backyard of the house that I lived at at least once a day, find a time when I felt okay and walk, because that helped with your lung function. And so I actually ended up, and I woke up in the backyard, and it was, I realized that I just gave up because I was walking, and I remember kind of like just feeling really tired. Mm-hmm. And I woke up laying in the backyard, and I was like, okay, I got to get up. And it took a lot, to get up. And then the body aches. Mm-hmm. And it felt like my knees were going to snap. It hurt so bad. And it was mostly, I had most of the body aches were in my lower half of my body.
That's interesting. It's so interesting how it's so different for everyone.
So it is a lot of my. No, some of my coworkers all had it on the upper body, so it is weird. But mine was all lower body, and it was so painful to get up and even just walk.
What week were you in when you collapsed like that?
It was the second week.
Okay.
It was,
wow, you went down fast.
Yeah. I wasn't even at home. I quarantined at a group home away from my family. Mm-hmm. I had quarantined at work when we had our first positive case. I had happened to have a few days off. And so I quarantined at work and decided not to come home. And it was just, it wasn't, anyways, it was a spiral from there. But I don't even think I realized, I probably was working sick and didn't even realize it for a while, honestly, because of how they came on and having to wear the PPE and everything. But I don't even know what point I was getting at, Ivy. I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I don't even know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
No, so when you got really sick in the first 2 weeks, did then you do the like roller coaster where you'd be like, okay, better.
Okay, that's where it is. So I ended up quarantining away from my home. So my doctor put me at high risk for stroke because of the symptoms that I was having. Mm-hmm. And she was really concerned about that. And so my husband said, okay, no, you're coming home, and put up a door to our basement. And I came home and quarantined in the basement from there. But it was that third week is when I felt like I was getting worse. And I was getting this overwhelming chest and head pressure. It was like your chest caving in pressure, and then it would go up through my neck and into my head. And it was so much so that even my voice changed when that pressure would come. And that's when my doctor put me on a Z-Pack, and I actually felt better taking the Z-Pack than I did.
Is that a steroid?
It's antibiotic.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and I felt good. I think that was the best I felt, honestly, through the whole thing.
Fascinating. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, and that lasted maybe about a week, though. It lasted because it's only a 5-day dose.
Yeah.
And so, but once after that 5 days hit, it was probably about that 7th day. So 5 days, 6, 7, 2 days later, and I started to feel just as bad as I did.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm now trying to, in my brain, figure out how an antibiotic would help. I'm going to have to look into that.
Which doctor was that? Oh God, I've seen so many of them. Anyways, one of my doctors told me that it's because antibiotics also work as an anti-inflammatory. So it probably was suppressing that inflammation in my body. He said that's probably all. Yeah.
Yeah, which is what a steroid would do as well.
Yep.
So, roller coaster. So how we kind of covered it, but how's your life changed since COVID?
I just day-to-day functions is almost near impossible. I mean, there's some days I can get up and do stuff, but it takes so much energy out of me that it's astonishing. It really is. It blows me away every time I sit there and I'm like, how is this possible? Like, how do I feel this tired? How do I feel this weak? That's another thing. The weakness, the whole body weakness.
Yeah.
It's like really like trying to carry myself down the hallway is it blows me away that this is able to happen, and this far out too. I don't even know what to think of it anymore. Every time more things happen, I'm like, seriously, is this even really happening? Like, how is this? I don't understand,
So how many months has it been? April, May?
7.5 months for me. Almost 8.
Exhausting.
It is. It really is.
That mental strain which adds stress to your body that, like, when is this going to end? Not knowing when it's going to end. And, for me, like, I haven't been that sick, for a few months at least, but there's always that, is something going to happen? Like maybe a month ago, lying in bed and I had all my heart symptoms come back for a few hours, sitting on like something was sitting on my chest, felt like my heart was being squeezed, like something was stabbing there. I was short of breath. And that was just out of the blue, random. Like, why did this happen?
Yep. I actually had that a few days ago and talked to my neurologist, and he had somebody else call me back, but talking to her, and I told her, I said, she goes, well, what were you doing? Because I had like the chest pressure and went up into my head, and then I've had tongue numbness, which is weird, but it was talking to her about it. And she goes, well, what were you doing? And I said, I was laying in my bed playing a crossword, like, and she goes, oh, so nothing stressful. I said, no.
It just happens.
Yeah. So it's, it was the whole people trying to lean toward anxiety too. And it's like that there's no rhyme. The anxiety is that I have this happening to me.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, the anxiety comments. I know that it's well-meaning people just trying to help. Just don't give in to the fear. Just
right.
You're just letting the media influence you. It's anxiety. just, do some meditation. You'll be fine. I was meditating so much when I was really sick, like constantly.
Yeah.
Which did help, but, it was more just to escape the reality than, anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what has been the hardest part of this journey for you?
The hardest part of this journey, one, has been adjusting to my new physical capabilities, and two, the brain fog. I'm really, really struggling with the brain fog. I work in healthcare. I've dealt with so many people with memory issues and cognitive issues and all of that, before all this happened, I was telling my husband, that worries me more than anything is ever happening. And now it's happening. And I'm like, I'm only, 35 years old and this is happening.
Yeah.
And this shouldn't be happening. And it worries me what that means for the long run.
Yeah. I know. I said to my son the other day, if I don't figure this out, and I mean, I'm doing a lot for my brain, but I'm like, if I can't get on top of this, I think I'm going to have dementia in 5 years. That's the fear, and I think I'm doing well. Like, I'm taking an awful lot of stuff to support my brain, but there's days where it just nothing works.
I totally get it. And, it's like I told the neurologist, I feel like my brain has a stutter. I do. I go to talk and it's like, and it just doesn't come out right, but and the thought process doesn't work right. And it's easy to get lost in conversation. And it's a fear. It is a fear. And I think I worry about that more than anything with all of this.
Do you find that you can say something really, really silly?
And
not even realize it until it's pointed out, and then you have to go.
Yes. I say stuff that it doesn't even make sense. It has nothing to do with what we were talking about, and my kids will look at me sometimes, and they're like, and I'm like, never mind, just never mind. Like, I feel like I'm playing sign language a lot, and my husband luckily has caught on. Like, I'll go to talk about something and he now is finishing sentences and stuff for me, which I'm like, thank you. I'm like, because then it keeps me from having to keep trying. And so it's been a struggle, but there's been some really funny moments of it too. And yeah.
I mean, that's what I have to cling to. I think that's what we all have to cling to, is the silliness of it. Because
you have to laugh at it, otherwise you're going to cry. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, there's that too. That happens, but you need the balance. Yeah. So what has been the scariest symptom for you?
My scariest symptom it's probably a toss-up between my tongue numbness, which is causing difficulty swallowing, and my loss of fine motor function. So I'm having sensory issues where I can't like pick up little objects.
Yeah.
A lot of the time now, I have trouble tying my shoes.
Oh, wow.
Stuff like that, just holding on to things. I have trouble. And I think that really worries me because I'm already losing a lot. I've already lost a lot of physical capabilities, but losing just those fine motor skills to do just everyday things is really worrying me. And it seems like it's been a slow progression of losing this instead of
the other way around.
There have things that have gotten better, but these other things it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, the neurological seems to linger, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I had numbness, the whole left side of my body, and droopingness and tingling. That was when my poor daughter, I was like you, trying to stay out of hospital because I've got all my natural therapies and everything that I was taking. And I'm like, if I go to hospital, I lose it all. I lose the things that are actually functioning. You're keeping me functioning and keeping me alive. So I was trying to stay out of hospital, and my children couldn't see, had no adults they could come because they were sick. Their dad's very, very vulnerable, so he couldn't see them. And then, they've got grandparents who, again, too vulnerable. So my children were alone, literally alone with me, absent pretty much. And I didn't want to go to hospital, and I didn't know if I was going to come out. But the day that the neurological stuff really hit, and I was my daughter, who's 15, was looking up symptoms on Google, and she goes, "Mum, you're having a stroke." I said, "I'm not having a stroke. I'm not having a stroke." And I just didn't have the cognitive function to make a decision to go to hospital, and she slept on the floor next to me all night just to make sure that I didn't die. And I don't have those symptoms so much, but I still feel a constant slight dullness in the left side of my body. It's just ever present, and there's occasionally a droop will come here. And that's, that was in April that I ended up going to hospital the next time it hit really bad. So yeah.
Have you had any scans done?
Yeah, I got I had all the scans, all the scans that I could. So
I was gonna say me too, yeah.
But I just don't think that the current testing is adequate to pick up what's going on, because they don't know what they're looking for yet, or some researchers kind of getting to it. So I had a CT scan of my brain, which was CT of the chest and an MRI on my brain. Yeah. I'm allergic to both dyes, so I was scared of that as well. So I dosed up on steroids before that happened. But yeah, everything comes back normal.
It does, and that's another worrisome part. But it's weird that you say that you're left side. So most of my stuff is my right side. Yeah, and I have I wasn't noticing. My kid was doing a thing, trying to wink. She's 7, and she's and I was trying to do it, and I noticed that I can't hold up my cheek on my right side without it twitching, but I can on my left.
Oh, wow.
And so it's I'm noticing these weird more issues on my right side. So yeah, my fine motor skills is mostly on my right side.
Are you right-handed?
I am.
Convenient. Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because I do notice more on the one side of my body. And
I've read people where it's one side or the other. I don't think it's the neurological is both sides. I don't think. I haven't seen anyone. Could be wrong with that. But so have you been able to find adequate support, like mental, I nearly said. Well, I did. Medical, mental, and social support?
So actually I've gotten very lucky in that aspect. With the medical support. When I did get sick and workman's comp approved me, they actually, none of their doctors would see me. They all refused to see me, said they don't treat anything COVID related. So they actually had to outsource me to a different doctor, because they already accepted my claim, which was the best thing that could happen, because I didn't get a workman's comp doctor. I was like, yay. So I've actually got a very great team of doctors who has never, ever, ever questioned what I'm feeling or what I'm going through, and has been just amazingly supportive. And they've never, with the no questioning, they've always said, we're going to look at this, and then we're going to treat this symptom.
Yeah.
But the honest answer is we just don't know.
Yeah.
But they've been, they're like, tell me anything and everything that happens, anything that comes up, because it may or may not be related.
Yeah.
And, they said, it's like one of them said, you are our research. So,
oh, wow. You sound like you got a great team.
Yeah, so they're like, we're not going to know unless we look for it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it's been. And they've all kind of settled on that it's neurological. Mm-hmm. The social aspect of the support is rather lacking, though. Mm-hmm. Family. Mm-hmm. I love them, but I've had to kind of separate myself from them and a lot of people. I've been told by family that I wouldn't feel this way if I would, if I would have just chose a different path in life or something. And then, I don't understand.
You got sick at work?
Yeah. So it's my fault. It's my fault I got sick, and I just need to get over it.
Well, I didn't work in a hospital care setting, and I got sick.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of people. I love the good intentions of people, but I think the worst thing that people keep saying is, oh yeah, I feel that way too sometimes. If you just do this, you'll be fine. And it's like, no, and then they just don't understand. Everybody's like, I don't understand how you're still sick. And I don't understand how all your tests are normal.
Yeah.
How are all your tests normal and you still feel this way? Are you sure it's not all in your head? And it's like, I'm pretty darn sure that it's not in your head, because I even asked myself that same question.
Yeah.
Am I really just losing my mind, is what I think. And I get up and I get mad and I just try to be normal and live my life. And then I crash.
Yeah.
And I'm forced back into bed and not being able to do anything. And it's like, okay, no, this is not all in my head.
No. And I think for me, as I've come out of the worst and I look back, because, going through that, the up and down cycle and that, and then I look back and I go, no, I am a lot better. It wasn't, because then it was like, is this really this bad? Like, am I really experiencing this? For me, I felt like I was invaded by a computer program that just kept coming up with, no, you can't get through here, so try a different thing. Or an alien being, it just was so bizarre and unpredictable and persistent.
Right.
And that confusion of that added to the whole, is this real?
Yeah.
Really disassociated from my body.
Yeah. You go through those cycles. It's like a revolving door of, no, I'm okay and I'm going to be okay. Oh no, I'm not okay. I can't do this. I can't keep doing this. And then it's just back and forth. Yeah. You're like, you keep trying. And at least for me, I keep trying and get shut down by my body. My body just keeps saying, no, you're not doing it. Oh, I miss
that hope that you get when you start to feel better, and then the disappointment. It's how many times can I keep disappointing myself?
Yeah,
but I think this ends up being a really, and when we get better and we get through this, and we will look back in the future, it'll be such a test of our resilience, because every day resilience is tested.
Oh, most definitely. I hope I look back on this and feel like I did okay, but there's some times where I'm just not so sure.
Yeah. And that's understandable. And is there anything you've found that helps you the most?
Oh, I was really glad for my doctor to put me on magnesium. I think that helped a lot. Of course, it didn't work forever, and it still works to the point where it does keep my heart rate down.
Yep.
And does help with like the overall body aches and stuff. I've been put on amitriptyline. It's a antidepressant, but it is at a low dose. It only works for nerve pain. It does nothing for depression. And so that actually, I was living with daily headaches, like an underlying headache all the time. Never hadn't gone away for 6 months. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And it, like 2 or 3 times a week, I'd get full blown migraines.
Oh no.
And so the neurologist said, well, let's try this as a preventative for headaches, because it works as a nerve blocker type pain thing. And I've actually had more days without the head pain and the underlying head pain. And I've only had about a migraine maybe every week now, instead of every day, or every few days. And so it's an improvement, and I'm seeing that improvement, and that makes me happy. So, but then I don't know if like the pain going away makes me notice all the other stuff more.
Most likely.
Yeah,
when you've got head pain, it dominates.
Yeah. So once that went away, I'm going, oh God, has wait, I think this has been happening. I vaguely feel like this has been, but it's like, was I just not noticing it as much because of the pain? And now that the pain's gone, I notice more of this stuff. I don't. Or am I just losing my mind?
No, you're not losing your mind. Is there anything that makes you worse?
Activity, any and all activity. I do just fine if I just stay in bed and do nothing. I really do. In getting up and walking around too much,
Exhausting.
It doesn't matter what it is. Any activity flares me up.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think I've said this in the forum a few times, that for me, the way that I came to accept was I looked at resting as part of the work that I need to be doing. And that's what I do. I still do that during the day. For me, thinking burns my brain. So if I do a strenuous mental activity, like setting up all the background stuff to even start this podcast, I could do half an hour and then I'd literally either have to have a nap, or for some reason, and I don't understand, watching Netflix or, watching a show actually soothes my brain. And then I'm like, okay, if I do that for half an hour, I can then go on and do the work. And it's kind of considering that rest as work, because while you are resting up doing anything, your body is repairing.
Right. That's been my biggest struggle, though, because that is completely against everything that I've always been like. I hated being down. I hated being sedentary. It was just not a part of my life at all. And now, I mean, Netflix is my favorite thing right now, and it's semi-sane, and because I used to read on some of my off time, like my downtime, and I can't even do that.
Reading.
I can follow enough to understand or remember what I had just read. That's a struggle too. So that's been hard for me too, because I'm losing more things, not just physically but mentally too, that I used to enjoy.
Yes. So. I have confidence it will come back. It will.
I sure hope so.
Okay, so we've kind of covered you are suffering from Rona Brain, but what's the funniest thing that you've done because of Rona Brain?
Oh, there was a day that I got up to go to work, and I was it was one of those mornings that I knew was going to be bad already, because I couldn't function to do anything. I put 2 different socks on. I was like, and then I was running behind, and which isn't like me either. Usually I'm way ahead of schedule, and I'm behind all the time now. But went out to my car, and I sat out there, I'm not kidding, 15 and 20 minutes, irritated that I couldn't get in my car. And I'm like,
you in the car, or you?
No, I couldn't get in the car. And so I came in the house, and my husband looked at me and he's like, what? And I was like, I can't get in my car. And he's like, do you have your keys? And I'm all, no. So I sat out there at my car for 15, 20 minutes and was late to work because it didn't even register that I didn't have my keys.
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, no. Okay. And in one sentence, can you describe what COVID's been like to you?
It's been a very just humbling and heartbreaking experience. Learning my new limits, and it's heartbreaking.
It is. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, no, I don't know.
It's been a long time talking.
It has, and we've gone over a lot, and it's just, this whole thing, it's so sad to see the amount of people being affected by this, and also the amount of people that still don't care.
Yeah.
I think
I've said it a few times in, on Facebook, and then realize I just get attacked. But, if you are one of the people who think this is a hoax, you're lucky enough to have not been affected by it or know anyone who's been affected by it. And that, in our country, that's thanks to the strict restrictions that we had put down that, people were complaining about. But you know what? They kept you safe. And if you think this is a hoax, or you think it's overblown, then you're very lucky. Be grateful. Be grateful that you haven't been affected by it.
Yeah. It's I keep hearing people, it's, they're like, oh, I'm healthy, I'll be fine. And it's like, I was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I was healthy, and they've tested me for everything under the sun. I had no pre-existing conditions. I have nothing. I have no ANA markers. I have no autoimmune markers. I have absolutely nothing. And so it's like you say this and you say that, but everything says that I should have been okay, and I wasn't. So it's just, it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It really.
No wonder your research team or your team is very excited to research you, because that's because I was under the impression, so I've had glandular fever, or mono, I think you call it in the US, and so that's what I thought was what, made me susceptible, because I know that's a link that they're looking at. But
I keep seeing all of this, and I keep thinking I should post about it, just because I'm curious of how many people have nothing. Because we keep seeing all these people, oh, I have this. Oh yeah, I do too, and everybody has these things that relate to. And I look at all that and I'm like,
had nothing.
But I don't have them. So what does that mean? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for everybody? Is that just a coincidence, or is there something to it? But
maybe there is, it's, you should definitely do a poll. You should ask people. See, because I mean, for me, with my children, they all got sick to some degree, but varying degrees. My eldest son, it was only hindsight that I realized he was coughing for 3 days. That was it. Like, it wasn't even a bad cough. It was just, I noticed him coughing. And and then, and his dad and his sister were like, well, no, he coughs all the time. And then when he stopped that 3 days, I was like, no, he does a little, like, sort of cough every now and again, but it wasn't a lot, but, it was enough. That's him. That was him done.
Right.
Thankfully, he was the one keeping the household running, He was still working. I rang up every day and said, look, because I wasn't tested positive, I couldn't get tested. They weren't taking it seriously. He was still working, but I needed that because there was no income coming in. And he was working, he was shopping, he was doing it all, as a 16-year-old. And then my youngest, who is 6, she was on and off sick for 3 weeks probably, and she would have bad hours, really. Like one morning she woke up and she was coughing, and she felt like she couldn't breathe. But that only lasted, a really short amount of time. She had fever on and off. She had a sore throat. That's probably it for her. But then my middle child, she had like runny nose, like literally she was walking around with tissues in her nose for the first 2 days because it was running. And she thought she was fine after that. And then she ended up having a lot of the gastrointestinal pain. So her worst night was I couldn't stay up and help her any longer, and I had to go to bed, but she couldn't sleep because the pain in her abdomen was so severe. It felt like something was stabbing her. And she had a lot of fever and, and whatever. But again, she's fine now. They've all completely recovered, and none of them have got any sort of pre-existing stuff either, but it's affected them all differently.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad to know that they're not all still experiencing stuff like you are. That would be awful.
Yeah, it would be. Yes, it would be heartbreaking actually. But yeah, they're off living their lives and having a great time. So
well, kudos to your son for stepping up and helping out. That's amazing.
That was the hardest for me. The hardest thing was having to have the conversations. So it makes me tear up with my children, because they couldn't get any adult help. And I had to say to my older children, if I go to hospital, I might not come back. I don't know what's going to happen. And having to say to them, this is how the mortgage gets paid. This is how the electricity gets paid. If you need help on this, this is the person that you need to contact. If you get sick in this way, this is what you need to do. And, just teaching them the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And not, like they don't live, their dad doesn't live with us. But he couldn't even come and he couldn't look after them, and it was really hard having to say, like, I don't know if I'm going to live. And trying to support them through that while they had to support me was really hard. But they stepped up, they shared it. So my daughter, she was 15 now, but she was 14, so she handled all the bills and all the the first aid healthcare stuff, the stuff that, if you get this symptom, then this is what you need to, she did all of that sort of stuff, and he did the running around. Housework didn't get done.
Often, what? My housework's still not getting done.
No. Stages. Some days I have good. But yeah, then, and the little sister, I could get to 6 o'clock in the evening and she'd be screaming, and I'd be like, has anyone fed her? No one had fed her because I couldn't,
Oh no, I understand. God, your family pulled together for each other. That's awesome. I look at it and I'm grateful that I had my husband, because I told my doctors my children would have been feral children.
How old are your children?
I have a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so
I'm like,
they're quite a bit younger.
Yeah, I'm like, they would have been feral. They would have been, eating something that was found in the back of the pantry.
Yeah, because 13's a little bit too young to go to the shops, and and we live close to a supermarket, so I would often, if it was a big shop, I would often drive him because I wasn't diagnosed. It wasn't any, I was able to leave the house. I didn't leave the car, and he would wear a mask and do, back before anyone was wearing masks, he would do the right thing. But yeah, he would often just have to walk to the supermarket and walk back with everything. And he was buying a lot of the food with his own money because I just didn't have it.
That's amazing. He deserves a lot of praise.
Yeah, he struggled at school that term, and I just forgot. And I eventually realized, when I contacted his teachers and I said, this is what's happened. This is what I had to do. And trying to keep up with schoolwork on top of that, how? And, he was escaping himself because how terrifying to have to watch that,
Yeah, it probably scared them too.
Yeah, and then I kept saying no, like I drove with the day that I had the neurological stuff happening, I drove to the doctors. I don't know why my doctor said to come in, drive there. I don't know why I did, but I had my son in the car with me, looking out to make sure I didn't have an accident, and I had to keep pulling over, like every, minute or two. I had to keep pulling over and just regaining my strength to continue driving. I'm like, what was the? How did I do that to my child? But just wasn't thinking.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a struggle. Thinking alone is just a struggle. So, yeah, there's parts in the beginning of my illness that I don't even remember.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember like talking to my husband or somebody and like hearing their voice, but not comprehending any words. What was being said, and it's like, I can't talk to you anymore. I've got to lay down. I've got to, and it's, so it's just beyond anything. But yeah, that the brain fog and all of that along with everything else, it's astonishing what this virus can do. Yes. So
a bit of as far as viruses go, it's a bit of a champion. If I was a virus and I wanted to succeed, Corona's doing a good job.
Right. Did you lose taste or smell?
Yeah, I did. This is actually funny how I found out, because all I was eating, I'd get a whole chicken and I'd slow cook it, and then I'd make a broth out of the bones. So that's all I was eating, and boring food for a long time. And then one day I decided, I think it's when our extra money came through from the government, and I was like, I'm going to treat myself to Thai. And obviously my appetite had come back, and I got green curry and I'm eating it. I'm like, this is awful. And I said to my daughter, I said, does yours taste good? She said, oh, it's great. And I was like, oh, I've lost my sense of taste. That was how I realized I didn't know.
Right.
And then I was like, damn it. I spent so much money on some lovely food that.
Has that come back for you?
Yeah, it has, yeah. I don't think my smell, because my sense of smell used to be really, really strong. It's always been my strongest sense. And I don't think it's as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, my sense of taste and smell, I never completely lost it, but nothing tastes the same anymore. Everything tastes different, and it's like my smell comes and goes. Sometimes I can't smell anything. My husband will be like, do you smell this? And I'm like, I don't smell anything. I don't know. And then I bought 3 different tubes of toothpaste thinking our toothpaste went rancid or something, or I bought expired toothpaste. I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. Threw them out, and my husband's like, you just bought that. I'm like, I don't care. It tastes awful. I can't. And so now I just have to just struggle through it and get it done because it tastes so bad, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Awful. Does toothpaste ever expire?
It does, but it takes a long time. Yeah. No, this, I'm glad I have people to laugh through it with me though, because it would be awful. I don't know about you. I have trouble reading analog clocks.
Oh, okay.
And it was awful. I was at work, and my coworker asked me something about when somebody's seizure or something was, and I said, oh, I think it happened at such and such time. And I said 2 hours in the future. And she's like, she looks at me, and my coworker goes, it's okay. You have some timers. Sometimes you know what time it is, and sometimes you don't. I'm like, I'm glad you could laugh at it, because I can't read a clock now, like that.
Wow.
You gotta laugh at everything that happens and try to find humor in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm gonna stop recording now, and then we can have a little chit chat afterwards. Thanks, Brandy. It's been lovely talking to you and sharing your story.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that there's going to be people who get great benefit from hearing this.
I hope so. Yeah, you as well.